Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of What About? My name's Pete, I like pictures, and in this episode I will show you a very simple, very straightforward method that will give you full control over the exposure of your photos. Question: do we need to be in full manual mode for that? Answer: no, we don't. Because that is one of the cool things about this method. It works with either of the 3 automatic modes that I was talking about in the last episode: the program automatic, the aperture, and the time priority mode. What do we need for that? And don't worry if you don't know what I'm talking about. I will walk you through the whole process. We need the spot metering mode, which is available in almost every camera. And we need the exposure compensation. Same goes for that. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, I will walk you through the whole process. So enough rambling! Let's start with the video. I will not go too much into detail in this video. I will only show you this method, and I will probably explain a bit more in depth what all of these things do in future videos. So take your camera and switch it to the program automatic, or the aperture priority mode, or the time priority mode, which one of these modes you're most comfortable with. If you don't know what any of these modes do, use the program automatic. The program automatic is, well, simply speaking, the exact same as full auto, but will give you a lot of influence over all of the settings of your camera. And that is what we're gonna use, because we will change to the spot metering mode. So use the program automatic and the spot metering mode. What all these metering modes do is they measure or meter the brightness in your scenery. The spot metering mode only uses a tiny little fraction of your photo, so you can meter a very, very precise spot, and that is what we will take advantage of. The trick involved is to know that what our cameras do in any of these automatic modes is to make an average of what they metered. So in case of the spot metering mode, it meters a tiny little spot, about 3 to 5% of usually the center point of your camera, and averages that out. And here is where the exposure compensation comes in handy, because usually the needle is set to 0, and 0 means a mid-tone brightness. So the exact middle of the, in case you heard of that term already, histogram. So what your camera does in every automatic mode, when the exposure compensation is set to 0, it will take what you metered, the average of what you metered, and assume that this is a mid-tone brightness, and you can try that yourself. So if I, for example, for the spot metering mode and the program automatic mode activated and the exposure compensation at 0, if I take a photo of that black wall behind me, you will see that the resulting photo is a mid-tone gray. So I will do that. You can do that as well. You don't need a black wall. You can use any kind of colored wall. And you will see that the photo itself has a mid brightness value. I will do that now. And you see a mid-tone brightness. And I can do the same with a white wall. For example, I'll use the ceiling, right? So I'll take a photo of the ceiling. And you see, it's also a mid-brightness value. And that is the trick involved. So if the exposure compensation is set to a mid value, to 0, the camera will assume that what you metered is a mid-tone brightness, and so make the settings of the exposure settings of your camera accordingly so that the resulting photo will have a mid-tone brightness. And since we can change the exposure compensation, you can tell the camera by changing the exposure compensation to say +1, +2, +3, 4, 5, whatever, to make what you metered 1 f-stop, 2 f-stops, 3 f-stops, 4 f-stops, 5 f-stops brighter than a mid-tone brightness. So what can we do with that? How can we use this information? Very simple. So if we have the exposure compensation set to say +2, and we meter, say, the clouds in the sky, what we will have in the end are clouds in our photo that have a brightness value of +2, 2 f-stops brighter than a mid-tone brightness. And I mentioned that value because that is exactly what I do. When I'm outside taking photos of landscapes, I usually meter the clouds if I want to have still information in the clouds, usable information, and not just a bright white value or bright white area. And so I still have a bit of texture, I still have a bit of pattern area in my photo. The same goes for black. I'm wearing my almost black jacket here, so if I have a person in front of my camera that wears a black jacket and I want this black jacket to still have a bit of texture, to still have usable, visible information, I meter that texture of the jacket and set my exposure compensation to something around -2, -3, something like that. Then of course it can happen depending on the circumstances, depending on the light, that the skin tone is too bright. So of course I can also meter for the skin tone. Caucasian skin tones like mine usually are at around +1 of a mid-tone brightness. So if I meter the skin tone, if I set my camera to, or my exposure compensation to +1 and meter for the skin tones will be exposed correctly. And that is all that is to this method. So of course there's a bit of playing around involved, and of course there's a bit of experience involved, but you can easily set your camera settings with the help of the program automatic, the aperture, or the time priority to get the exact results you want. And well, if you have a blue sky, right, and you want that blue sky to be really dark, then meter the blue sky and set the exposure compensation to -3, -4, -5, whatever, and the sky will be really dark and dramatic. So very simple trick, very, very easy. Have fun, play around with that. See you next time. Bye-bye.
I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. Subscribe to this channel and you'll never miss any of these videos.